Thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Footpod, where the three of us, of course, come together and talk about all that's happening in world football and European football. और देखिए, जहां हमारे साथ फ्लॉयड पिंटो हो, रिचर्ड हुड हो, तो बारीकी की बातें होंगी यहाँ पे, ऊपर ऊपर की बातें नहीं होंगी, क्योंकि जब भी मैनचेस्टर यूनाइटेड मुकाबला खेलता है, चाहे किसी के साथ भी खेलता है, और मुकाबला हारता है, तो ऊपर ऊपर की बहुत एनालिसिस होती है भाई, बारीकी एनालिसिस इतनी देखने को नहीं मिलती. एंड समहाउ आई फील बैड बिकॉज after every game now, even though we're 4 games into the season, people have already started talking about what we've writing on our super. Is time running out for Ruben Amorim? Just 4 games into the season, and you can't really blame them for asking them because the amount of investment that's gone into it, the amount of conversations that has gone into this entire Manchester United squad. Now their latest loss coming 3-0 versus their rivals, Manchester City. I don't know if you want to call them rivals, but crosstown compatriots in the same league. I guess that's the only way, because one is 17th, one is first or second in the table, and वो आसार दिख नहीं रहे कि वो कितने आसानी से बदलेगा, कैसे बदलेगा. पर उस सब के बारे में बातचीत करेंगे on this episode of Football. Floyd, Richard, good to see the two of you. And before we get into the result and we get into how United is playing, and the buzzword is Amorim is too fixated on his system. Do you guys, as coaches who've been in that hot seat, feel bad for the guy just purely because of, okay, forget the results, forget that it's not working out, but from a coach's perspective, do you feel bad for the guy कि इतना आप उसको खोल रहे हो, इतनी उसकी वहां पे बातचीत हो रही है, and nothing seems to be coming out in favor of the guy? Floyd?
Well, if it were last season, yes. I mean, you felt a little bit for him because the results weren't going his way. The players that he didn't want were in the squad, training day in, day out. But now, after a pre-season, after spending nearly 200 million in the transfer window, after getting rid of all the players that he deemed were not good enough or suitable to his system or his style of play, there are no excuses. And to add to that, and we'll talk about this into more detail, he's kind of not helped his cause as well, with certain players not playing in the position that they should, as they were last season, which actually helped and were the positives for him in terms of creating goals and assists for the team. So there are two ways to look at it. He still needs a little bit of time with respect to what they've done. I still feel they are much better as compared to last season.
I agree
but
with you.
Just one result doesn't change. Yeah, in terms of intensity, in terms of organization, in terms of a pattern of play or a style of play, you can clearly see that this season and even in the game against City. But with respect to certain personnel, not with respect to the shape, just with respect to certain personnels playing in certain positions, he's kind of been very rigid, and that's kind of hurting him right now.
So who is that? That is Bruno Fernandes, who's playing where he is in that 3-4-2-1, and Ugarte with him in the center. Is that what you're referring
Exactly.
to?
I mean, the player that was top of the list in terms of attacking intent, goal creations, chances created, or anything that Manchester United did last season when in terms of scoring goals or creating chances, Bruno Fernandes was on top of that list. So as soon as you take that player and put him in a position of a number 6, you're taking out a big chunk of what was working for you last season in terms of chance creation. And then you have a player like Seshko, or you have a player like, and when you lose Cunha, I thought this game would be the perfect game to replace Cunha with Bruno Fernandes in that position. And when I talk about style of play, there was a clear pattern of play where they passed out from the back and got past that first press of Manchester City, and the only thing that they were doing was going wide. And when they went wide, they went to Patrick Dorgu and they went to Mazraoui. Now these two players, Patrick Dorgu had the most touches in the opposition box for a Manchester United player, but the end product was not there. You have a 6-foot plus striker inside the box, but you weren't crossing. You have Mbuemo, you have Ahmad in the middle, but they weren't able to play through Manchester City, or they weren't brave enough to play through Manchester City. So everything else went wide. So when you see that happening, why can't you play someone like an Ahmad? in that position from the start, and that gives you much more creativity on the wings.
But then
Yes, you're
Floyd
going to take a little bit
defensively
of a risk.
defensively कहाँ देगा आपको वो सर जो डोरगू दे सकता है in that system of especially Shaw. I mean, Shaw doesn't really give you the most confidence when it comes to defensive capabilities purely because here's a guy who's not built any momentum over the years. अंदर आता है बाहर जाता है अंदर आता है बाहर जाता है उसके साथ डिलिट है उसके साथ यूरो है तो surely I'm sure that Dorgu I'm guessing Dorgu's selection in that lineup is a lot to also do with what he can do to come back in that five-man defense, right? As opposed to having Ahmad.
Yeah, I'd keep Patrick Dorgu there. I would put Ahmad on the right, which he did. And once he did that, and once he bought in Kobe Menu and put Bruno Fernandes up front, within
Hmm.
the space of 10 minutes, they created three chances where they should have scored, by the way. And Buemo should have scored. Ahmad had a chance to score, and they could have been easily 3-2 and back in the game.
Hmm.
So why doesn't he do that at the start of the game? Why don't they play and plan for that at the start of the game? It beats me because even for example, Luke Shaw is an attacking wingback. So why can't you get Luke Shaw in the place of Patrick Dorgu, and he'll definitely give you something in that attacking third that Dorgu doesn't give you. Maybe play them half 45 minutes each.
Hmm.
You have the likes of Harry Maguire on the bench. Maybe Lisandro Martinez is coming in. You have the young guy Heaven, I think, the defender on the bench,
Hmm.
who's quick, who's good on the ball. Play those guys at the back, and play someone like an Ugarte and Casimiro in the midfield, and just shut the center of midfield up, and let these guys play and do their work on top of the pitch.
Richard, mere bhai, is it purely see the point with United is the amount, the system, the formation, the substitutions, the 11 is discussed. I have not seen with any other side, and that for me is an indication that there's sort of helter skelter everywhere because आपका फॉर्मेशन इतना बदलता है आपका पर्सनल इतना बदलता है कंसिस्टेंसी इतनी बदलती है उस 11 की कि मतलब आपको पता नहीं क्या हो रहा है तो यू कीप ऑन टॉकिंग अबाउट इट ये देखो वो नहीं आया उसको आता वो देखो 15 मिनट के लिए वो आया तो उसने क्या गेम बदल दी उसने उसको क्यों नहीं खिलाया फिर उसको खिलाया तो किसी और को क्यों नहीं लाया आई हर्ड दिस कॉन्वर्सेशन अराउंड यूनाइटेड एंड दैट कोच फॉर सो लॉन्ग नाउ विद एमोरिम इज इट प्योरली भाई and I'm talking about when United is playing top teams like City, top six, let's talk about that. Is it purely a case of just the personnel not being good enough? Sir, in the very basic things, not being good enough to win that ball, not being good enough to create, not being good enough to put in the very basic little thing. It's as simple as that. And we don't need to go so deep into it कि वो formation यहाँ है, formation खराब खिला रहा है. Just a case of the personnel not being good enough. And it's not been good enough for a long time.
One point is, if at all you read a bit deeper into his press statement where he said, I won't change. If I don't change, then you can change the man and things like that. There was also a little bit of a line about things not being great behind the scenes as part of this. I think, yeah, same interview. I think preceding this or following this, he had mentioned that things aren't really good. If you knew what was going on behind the scenes, you really wouldn't be
Yeah, he said that.
questioning on these lines. So, given that context and the fact that personnel not being good enough, I mean, this is a top-notch club. I think amongst the best clubs over the last 20, 25 years. Historically, also, they have a huge name. So, there is no shortage of, let's just say, you can't fail in your recruitment department that badly. Ki it leads to that level of volatility, that level of change, that level of uncertainty game after game. And I think all of this catches on. If at all, us sitting here in India amongst our own friend circles, which is dominated by Manchester United fans, उतना जितना breakdown होता है हमारे देश में बाकी सब जगह में कम ही होगा. But you get people diving deep into all of this and trying to figure out the problems in terms of whether it's the personal, whether it's the coach, is it the deployment, is the playing system working or not. But this is like a 8, 9 year old problem now. It's not something that the
Exactly.
previous coach he left and then he went away. It's not much to do with. There's not something. I don't think this conversation would have changed much. Let's say 3, 4 years back, or 6, 7 years ago, in terms of whatever you've just described, in terms of uncertainty of personnel. Floyd has mentioned the deployment of players, the sort of players you have on the bench being there. You have, I think you mentioned Lisandro. You have Maguire. You're
Yeah.
playing a guy who's built. I mean, Luke Shaw ka ye jaake dekh lo highlight reels in terms of what he does in the final third. That's shockingly good in terms of carrying the ball, making these runs. ahead of the forward line, pinging in first time crosses. And of course, I'm talking ages back, but completely agree with what Floyd has said कि बहुत बार अगर ये देखोगे players किधर खिला रहे हैं, even as a distant fan, you start to question a bit in terms of what exactly is happening. Is it the system? Is it the deployment? Is it the quality of the players? But a lot seems to be breaking down. ये नई कहानी नहीं है, ये चलती आ रही है. I think I just seen a stat where they said this is his 4 points from 4 games this season and 31 points from 31 games so far. So it's just been averaging at 1 point per game so far. I mean, the club under him. So you really can't pinpoint भाई कि what exactly is going wrong.
बट भाई एक आप बताओ, देखो जी, एक ना कोचों की एक बड़ी, एंड फॉर मी इन अ कोच, मैं ढूंढता हूँ कि कोच अकड़ू होना चाहिए. जो मेरी टीम को चला रहा है ना, वो अकड़ू आदमी होना चाहिए, क्योंकि किसी सोच समझ के आपका हमने सिलेक्शन किया है कि जी आपकी एक सोच है, इतनी जल्दी उससे बदलना मत. देन दैट फॉर मी इज इवन वर्स, कि वो झट से आप बदलने की कोशिश कर रहे हो. सो फॉर मी इट्स अ गुड थिंग कि अकड़ू कोच है, कि मैं ऐसे ही खेलूंगा, मैंने ऐसे सक्सेस प्राप्त किया है, फ्लॉयड. But then suddenly these numbers come in front of you. Then the surround sound comes with you, with all the everything that social media brings to you and the kind of analysis the social media brings to you. I mean, like, look at this. Everyone's laughing about this, sure, and we're calling this really bad defending. But then the other way of looking at it is, if you see the game, if you see 5 minutes before, you see 5 minutes after, there are many times when moments like these can happen, right? But हो क्या रहा है, हम still image यहाँ पे डाल देते हैं, and then पूरी दुनिया में ये सर्कुलेट होता है और उसको रिडिक्यूल किया जाता है. सो फ्रॉम दैट पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू, एज अ कोच, हाउ लॉन्ग कैन ही कंटिन्यू डूइंग दिस? हाउ लॉन्ग कैन ही कंटिन्यू protecting his system before it actually turns fatally on his job? It's as simple as that.
See, one thing that I'll add is it's not as bad as everyone's making it. To put it to context, they were above City in the table before this game. Okay, and one result will not change, the positives that he's brought in this season as opposed to what it was last year. Like I said, the intensity is much better. The players know what they need to do in those particular positions. There's a clear pattern of play when they build up from the back and when they attack. But it's not the system. Okay, it's not the system that is the problem. It's the deployment of the players in that system which is an issue at this
But then
moment.
Floyd, doesn't it sort of go hand in hand? Ki your system should be in accordance to the kind of player you have or the quality of player you have.
Yes, but he has the players now at his disposal. But for some reason, where he's got kind of a balance now with respect to the patterns of play, with respect to the intensity that he wants, somehow he's taken a step back when it comes to, putting those players or being a little bit brave in his team selection. Like I said, last season, whenever Ahmad played as a wing back, they looked the most dangerous because maximum of their attacks have come through wing play, and I've drawn comparisons to why I say it's not the system, it's the manager and how he deploys the players. Draw comparisons to Crystal Palace. The way they play. They have much better players with respect to quality, but they try to play a lot central through Mateta, through Eze, through Ismaila Sarr. And then when it's not working in the central areas, they play on the wings. And then you have the likes of Munoz on the wing, Mitchell on the wing, that give you that second wave of attack. Not to mention Adam Wharton and, I think it's Will Griggs or something in the midfield that know their position really well. But when it comes to Manchester United, they fail to find the likes of, say, Ahmad, Sesko and Mbeumo in the central areas. They play the easy pass, which is switch play and on the wings, which is fine. But then if you as a coach have to realize that, okay, this is what is happening with my team. In my team, Dorgu and Mazraoui are the two players who are having the maximum touches in the opposition third. If that's happening, why not play one of your attacking wingbacks in that attacking wingers in that position? Why not play an Ahmad in that position? Which gives you a lot of creativity, at least from one side, and then you have a Dorgu who's basically doing his work on the other side. Why can't you play Bruno Fernandes in the front three? play a Manuel Ugarte, play a Casemiro. Okay, Casemiro after the international break has come all the way from Bolivia. It may be too much for him. I still believe there was a player called Collier or something like that from the academy who looked ready for that center midfield position. A young academy player, which was the DNA of Manchester United, bringing in players from the academy. He looked really sharp in that position. Why not play that? And I fail to understand why in every game he substitutes his centre backs.
Yeah, he does that very
You know,
regularly.
in every game, Dillit say Euro goes out, Harry Maguire comes in, Dillit goes out, Heaven comes in. I fail to understand the reason for rotating that. And
And
that
especially
and
when
that,
you're
and
when you're 2-0 down. When you're 2-0 down.
exactly, and that screenshot that you showed,
Yeah.
with respect to the goal being conceded. See, a goal is never conceded due to one error. It's always a combination of mistakes that happen. Okay, Luke Shaw loses the ball when he had no business to do so. Harry Maguire, when you're supposed to clear that ball into row Z, tries to play a pass and plays it straight to a City player. In this screenshot, your third centre back, which is Dillit, is on the wing. Okay, and then you have Kobe Manu, who's your second centre midfielder trying to cover up. So these kind of situations have to be worked in training, because no matter whether you're chasing the game or whether you're up or down, you cannot lose. There are certain defensive principles that have to always be maintained. So this is where you question Ruben Amorim. You know, when you are trying to chase a game, no matter what you do, are you working with these players in training so as to this kind of uh, disorganization in defense or in transition does not take place on a repeated basis? That is what you need to ask him. Because so when it comes to personnel, when it comes to being a little bit more brave in your team selection, that is where I think it's lacking. It's not the system. I think we should get past that. It's not the system. We've seen that system work under Oliver Glasner, under Antonio Conte in the Premier League. We've seen that system work. It's now about Ruben Amorim making the right decision with respect to player selection and stopping situations like this. Because you cannot you cannot just say we're chasing the game and leave Haaland the length of the pitch to run and score a goal.
Floyd, Richard. So then, bhai, see, at the end of the day, it all points to the coach. Selection points to the coach, irrespective of whether your system is working, not working. If you're not getting the results, everything is pointing to you, the coach, at that time. Now you're 4 games into the season, bhai, and 4 games into the season, हमने आपको एक प्रीमियर लीग का पूरा गेम दिखा दिया है कि नहीं सर? ये खास बात है फुटपॉड की. तो आप मुझे बताओ, just purely by looking at the 90 minutes that you've seen, and forget all the noise, because there's too much baggage when you talk about Manchester United and whatever they've been doing. Too much baggage of the past, too much baggage of what's happening around the surround. Forget that. Just for the 90 that you've seen in front of you, what did you make of the team in red and how they were playing?
So I'll flip it around and let's just focus on the team in blue. When they came in with licking their wounds into this game with not the best record, their
Yeah.
worst start to the Premier League in a long time, and watch players like Rodri, watch some of the sloppy passes. I mean, like if you compare the previous midfield that City had displayed, the number of passes that were being overhead, the number of passes that were being incomplete in the first half, I'm saying.
Mhm.
So it was something. I mean, Manu managed to make them look good despite all those mistakes that had taken place. The sort of breakdown in play that was occurring, that is very unlike Guardiola side. And I think WhatsApp group पे भी हम लोग ने काफी discuss किया कि it was long ball, a lot more direct, but that came only in the second half. Clearly, there was an indicator that City, whatever they were trying in the first half, obviously they got the lead. It wasn't working in
Hmm.
terms of the amount of time they were taking to break through. That screenshot also that you shared, we don't need to go back to it. But what Floyd has said, these are repeatable mistakes. And you look at the phase of 10 minutes before that screenshot was taken and 5 minutes after, the number of runs that Haaland has made, just working off the line and breaking through, working off the line and breaking through. Obviously, it became a bit more of a foot race in the other instances. But that screenshot, obviously, for dramatic effect, to usko udhar dal diya. But the number of times that exact situation came in, ये पहली बार नहीं हो रहा था. So you're also making a team that is struggling and you're giving them ideas to work with. Rodri, I think it was his first game in a long time. He managed to finish 70 minutes with not too many hiccups over there. और उसका जाके first half का आप एक bloopers reel बना दो भाई. Something like it almost he was nowhere close to his best. You had guys like Bernardo Silva coming down and trying to help out a lot. But what Floyd had said, he can certain phases they look good. And if you're asking about watching the game from the 90 minutes perspective, within the noise, सब लोग यही बोल रहे हैं. They had a good phase of 60 minutes. They had a good phase of 30 minutes where they looked like they knew what they were doing. They were looking compact.
ये मैंने
पर
कहाँ
game तो
कहाँ
90
सुना
minutes
हुआ
का है
है
ना
ये
भाई.
इंडियन
ये तो
फुटबॉल में
हर
नहीं सुना
समय
हुआ
हम लोग
बातें
सुनते
ये.
रहते हैं कि ये फेज अच्छा था, इसमें दे लुक कॉम्पैक्ट, ये कर रहे थे, वो कर रहे थे. फॉर 20 मिनट्स दे रियली लुक लाइक दे कुड गेट अहेड. लेकिन 90 मिनट्स का कहानी अभी लगातार यही चल रहा है. In bits and bouts, in phases and small moments, they start to look good. That it looks like the ideas coming through, the players are responding. लेकिन लगातार तो score line पे it's not reflecting as much, nor is it reflecting in the collective performance. City found a solution. I mean, second half it was completely different. वो जो भी stats आएगा end of the game where Manu has a larger tilt in terms of the amount of possession that they enjoyed. Something what Floyd had mentioned about the crosses as well. Crosses सब second post पे receive हो रहा था. मतलब जिसको पहुंचना था, the guy waiting there in the middle with the height advantage or whatever it may be. It wasn't even that wide attacking play was being used to good effect. The delivery and the supply was also being overhit. सब लोग slide मार के volley कर रहे हैं. Even Embueno, everything looked like you needed to put in an extraordinary individual effort to make that pass look good.
Yes.
So even that attacking play which went out, they had some success in entering the final third because that's where the space was. And those are the players that were allowed to have that space. अगर पहले half का भी आप press देखोगे, wherever the ball was inside the Man U half, you had 4 City players right around them. They wanted the ball to go wide. And I don't think it troubled them too much that it went across to the 2 players that Floyd named as having maximum number of touches in the final third. Because it looked like that was the plan. Let them cross it in and then they didn't disturb them much. I mean, apart from Donnarumma's one brilliant save, uske aage bhi, even that came from a colossal effort. That ball could have gone anywhere, as in how that guy connected it and got it on target, that's a different story. But
that's 1 in 10 types.
If not for Donnarumma, so
Not
चले
for
ही जाता है.
Donnarumma. Yeah. So then Floyd, what do you see happening if it continues the same? And see, the thing is, it's a slow burn. So with Manchester United, ऐसा तो होगा नहीं कहता था flip of a switch. You pick up a run and you go on a run of 10 games unbeaten. You go on a run of picking up 10 wins. It's not going to happen, sir. The results, whatever you see on the field, you guys know this game better than I do, that it takes time. Now, the problem is with that stop clock on you after every loss, 17th in the table, 14th in the table, 15th in the table, it is catching up with you. And we're only 4 games into the season right now. Europe is going to start, and what else is going to start? Other competitions are going to start as well. You reckon he is going to last till January, Ruben Amorim? With all due respect to whatever he might be doing, how it might not be working, but we know a lot of other factors come into play when taking these decisions. You reckon he's going to last till January?
Yeah, one thing I like to correct is they don't have Europe. So he has the entire week. He has the entire week to work on. One thing I'd like to see, he's a nice guy, comes across really well in his interviews. If he's going to go, just go out with a bang. Go out playing on the front foot.
So don't change.
No, change your personnel. Get Casemiro, get Ugarte. Tell them just sit there and just protect the back three. Get Ahmad on the wing. If you want to go even more expansive, get Luke Shaw on the left wing. And get Bruno playing up front. Whether he combines with Šeško or Mbeumo or Cunha comes back, play Cunha, Bruno and Mbeumo, who are your best 3 attackers. And just go out and just try to win games. Play out on the front foot. Every time they play Ahmad on the wing, an attacking winger or as a wing back, and Bruno in the attacking third, they look much, much better than the opposition. Be it they are chasing the game, they are down by 2 goals or 3 goals or whatever, they always create more chances than the opposition. For the first time, I've seen Man City or Pep Guardiola react to bringing off a striker and bringing on Nathan Ake and making it a back 5, just not to concede a goal. So that they have tweaked in a way. We'll talk about Man City, but the effect of changing your personnel was so much that Man City had to go onto a back foot and just defend for the last 5-10 minutes. So why can't you start that as a coach from the first minute onwards, be it any team you're playing, whether it's home or away. And after that, if you lose, you can say, okay, hands up, I've tried everything. Best of luck to the next coach that comes in with this group of players.
Richard, don't see him lasting till Jan.
I don't know, because Manu also has this whole thing of we gave Ferguson 2 seasons and then he started to come onto his own. But I think times and economics also play a big part. I think if they don't continue making to Europe, it affects the income of the club. Performances also affect the brand. So like you said, it's not beyond most of our understanding what drives these decisions, apart from what his severance package might be. Agar usko hata diya, a lot of these factors will come in. And also Manu has had this whole thing of, we give our managers time, we are a different club. Uska bhi ek weightage hai, lekin abhi it's 10 months in, and if it continues this way, and what Floyd said, he has a good cult of charisma hai thoda, like he can hold his own. But I think last 6-7 times when you've seen him in front of the camera, I think there is a huge element of frustration, huge element of subdued anger jo aata hai. Like
he's looked tired, defeated.
Tired, defeated, And speaking of, if they get into a 10-match run, definitely Man City just might get onto that. Because the way if I told you needed a little bit of a confidence boost and a leg up, Man City looked like they had that capability of building some momentum and climbing up the table and becoming a contender. Obviously, Liverpool and these guys are a bit too far ahead. But even, let's say, next game they win, you really don't see them picking up from there and going on a 10-game run. So results will matter by end of the year. I doubt that the results will come. Whether he keeps his job or not, wo pata nahi.
So वही है सर, even I doubt the results will come on जो आप
See,
आसार आपने देखे. हाँ जी Floyd.
He's not lost the dressing room. That's a big advantage. He's
You
not
think
lost
so?
the dressing room. He's not lost it. The players believe
Sir,
in him.
but
Players
आप
are
एक
not
बात
playing.
बताओ ना सर, जब आप एक टीम के साथ हो and nothing is working for you, even the staunchest of player supporter will start doubting you after some time. The results
They
are not
will
coming.
doubt, but it's not yet come in, and the fans have not lost him yet. So whenever they play, even at Old Trafford, they get a lot of support. He gets a lot of support, and that Burnley win was a big win for him. That last minute penalty that they got, it had helped. I think it has given him at least maybe 3-4 extra games till they decide. But it's not like they have started to believe yet. But he's not lost the dressing room. He's not lost the fans yet. And like I said, before this game, they were above City in the table. City also were that bad at the start of the season. But they've tweaked. So if they have tweaked and Pep has managed to tweak a little bit and get this result, why can't Ruben Amorim tweak a little bit? I'm not saying change his shape, just change personnel and just go from being pragmatic. He has this, Amorim has this, the way of going. He likes to have the players on the bench to bring them on. He always talks about the right moment in the game. The right moment in the game. The right moment is when the referee blows the whistle at the start of the game. Why can't he start with that? He waits for the 68th minute. Okay, if you're 0-0, he brings on Ahmad, he brings on an attacking player, change a little bit and they win games or they get more chances. Why can't you do that from the first minute? And if you lose after that, even the fans will say, okay, yes, he's done everything what he needed to do with this set of players. It's similar to, say, Arsenal. For 2 years, you've been crying for a centre forward. Now Gyökeres is coming and he's playing. Similar to this, everybody, everybody in Manchester United is saying, why are we playing Bruno Fernandes next to Casemiro? It's everyone can see it. Even a fan who doesn't know anything about football but just follows Manchester United will say, why is Bruno Fernandes playing deep? So it's that. Why are we having a goalkeeper who cannot save?
If it's just one, I feel if I put myself in his shoes, the reason I'm guessing why he wants Bruno there is because if there's one boy with long ball and ability to pinpoint a cross or find a long pass on various corners of the pitch, then you would put that responsibility down to someone like a Bruno Fernandes. He can play it short, but he can also go long when you want him to. I don't think he has anyone else in that central area of the pitch.
I think Casemiro and Ugarte are much capable of doing that. I think that pass is easy. It's not that difficult to play, Arjun. And the players who play in the back three as well, Euro, Delit, and Luke Shaw are capable of doing that as well. If you compare, just compare. Would you rather have? Do they have someone to play that pass? and average it out to, do they have a player like Bruno on the top half of the pitch, what he created last season? There's nobody on in that top three that is creating as much as what Bruno did last year. Now you weigh the options up. Do you want Bruno to play that long ball, or do you want Bruno to be in that attacking third, which creates that little bit of magic where they get a chance or a goal? That's where he needs to be. So that's what I said. He's being very pragmatic. Typical Portuguese manager, don't lose first, and then we see the game out, and then we try to win it in the final 15-20 minutes. Whereas just go for it in the first minute. Think you're playing at Old Trafford in every game. One, your fans are going to enjoy the football that you play because you're going for it. You're going for it right from the get-go. And even if you don't get a result, then you at least say, okay, the players are given everything. At the moment, if your team's not going to be set up to win games and just waiting to hit on the counter and transitions every point of time, and then you lose a game like Man City, that's when you get the crowd on your back, and the pressure mounts.
Okay, fair point. I think we've spoken enough about Manchester United, not just us. I think the entire world must have done like a million hours of just chatting about Manchester United and their tactics and their formation and so on. But I guess that's how big the club is. And if all is not going well for the club, then, that is the kind of response that comes around with Manchester United. Because actually, mein kahani to ye hai, sir. After the 3-0 win of City versus Manchester United, Richard, it was a tale of two halves, would you say? Because I saw possession stats for City. First half, 60 plus percentage possession. Second half, you don't even touch 40%. They were happy to sit back and they were happy to invite United at them. And then, boom, Mara ji lamba to Erling Haaland. And then bhage unke do teen bande unke saath. And then that was working perfectly for them, which we haven't seen too often from Manchester City. If you would talk about stubbornness from a Ruben Amorim, वो ट्वीक हमें पिछले सीजन थोड़ा देखने को मिला फ्रॉम पेप ग्वार्डियोला कि जब थोड़ा धक्का पड़ा, थोड़ा सीज थोड़ी it wasn't going according to plan, then he's shown that you can tweak a little bit, and with that tweak you can of course then pull out results like these.
I think first half was a clear display of attempt to play the Guardiola brand of football, up, back, and through. Lot of players positioning themselves between the lines, between two players. So I think just what built up to the first goal, you look at the movement in the build out, what Foden had done, played the ball back, it bounced up, came to him, then he switched it across. So a lot of these moments you started to see, and you saw a huge reliance on Doku as well. And Guardiola, I think pre-season this year or sometime in, I think earlier in the year, calendar year, he had also mentioned the importance of getting dribblers, players who can have that individual spark to go through lines by carrying the ball. He's saying that's going to be the biggest your cheat code in breaking down teams. And you saw Doku do that time and again. You look at what City had attempted in the final third. A lot of the traditional style of play. It goes across, then goes back out, comes in, then big ball across. I mean, a lot of the interchanges that they have, short, long, short, those sort of passes into Haaland's feet. But I think somewhere or the other, they had realized that foot race that was on in the second half, what we saw, क्योंकि इतना possession रखना, where they were winning the ball back, I think they had a lot of success in getting, or Manu gave the ball away. It wasn't so much of a defensive pressure, but organization behind the press that forced a lot of errors. But because Manu was so compact down the middle, uh, in terms of where most of the players were deployed, most of the chances didn't come through. And I think that's where the little bit of the tweak must have been seen, that as soon as the ball goes out to those wide players that Floyd had mentioned after the big ball by Bruno making those switches, Manu tends to overcome it into the half to try and support the possession. And within that, if you're about 2-3 passes away from breaking through into the final third with somebody like Haaland chasing, then I think the Dutch guy, I forgot his name.
Johnny Reinders.
Yeah, he got into making similar runs just beyond them. So you started to see that the spaces that were being left behind, and then Man City taking advantage of them, that became a lot more of a priority in the second half compared to what happened in the first half. And then I think it wasn't long ball football either. I mean, it was very clear that they had seen this as a big weakness in Manu's organization and took advantage of it. Like I said, was screenshot Lelo. You look at the number of individual runs that were taking place. Ball goes back, the number of players just running into space. I mean, One is that the ball never stopped, and as the ball was moving, the number of players just getting themselves into those runs to meet the ball into the channels, that started to increase a lot more. So at least there you saw a little bit of a rhythm with pace with what Man City was trying to do. So kudos to them. I mean, jitna bhi hum log bol rahe hain ki you have one manager who's delivered so much success, being willing to, I mean, showing the willingness to change and bring about such a big difference between
Yeah,
first and second
and
half.
that too very far away from his philosophy. Yeah, like it's not like a minor tweak. It's a major
ये पर
change.
उसने भी धक्का खाया है ना last season
हाँ
in
हाँ
terms of being told that tiki taka and all of that, and he's also a big proponent of not labeling it tiki taka. He's saying that's just something fancy that the journalists and other people came up with. Now, if he doesn't have the sort of midfield he had, let's say 2-3 seasons ago, and he has a lot more athleticism within the team and
mm,
players who can play those passes, obviously he's going to lean into what works the best and what works the fastest. So, the solution is 2-3 passes away from creating a scoring opportunity and straight down the throat of the pitch. I think that is something that was being seen in the second half. So possession gap hard mein, I mean, let them keep the ball, let them play those uh, balls out wide, have possession, they will win it and then break them through. So वो 7-8, I think, yeah, that 20-minute phase was crazy. You could have easily
yeah.
seen the 3-0 become a 5-0, 6-0.
But
Chance पे chance बनते ही जा रहा था वो phase of
that
play
but
में.
Floyd, that's pragmatism for you, right? I mean, in game, how you control a game by making a small little tweak. That is what the coach's job is. You suddenly say, okay, in game now I need to tuck. थोड़ा मेरे को बदलना है और मैं उसको बदलूंगा. And I'm guessing one player who won't be complaining about this will be Erling Haaland. क्योंकि वो तो कह रहा होगा कब से कि यार मेरे को ऐसी सर्विस दो. मैं भागूंगा भागूंगा भागूंगा, but that's his game to take them on like that. And the result was there in front of me. You looking like that beast that you always refer to as Haaland, and he was looking like that beast courtesy that system.
It's clear that after the first, I think, 3 games before the international break, and the results that they've had a nice long chat. Pep Guardiola, Pep Linders, and Colo Toure. They've had a long chat, and I think based on those results, Pep Linders and Colo Toure have managed to kind of convince Pep to tweak a bit, because the City that you saw yesterday was not a Pep City, like 100%. And you
Hmm.
could see when he was on the touchline as well, he was very apprehensive. Okay, what the hell's going on? Sometimes, there were long balls, there was a lot of chaos going on, which you don't really associate with a Pep Guardiola side. Okay, uh, they were happy to go long from build up. Okay, whenever they had the ball, there was, the positional play that you associate with Pep. Every player has to be in these kind of positions. Maybe stretch the pitch wide, make it long, make it wide. It wasn't there. Doku for that goal was a left winger on the right side. That wouldn't normally happen in a Pep Guardiola positional style of play. He would have to have stayed on the left side of the pitch, waiting for the ball to come to him, you know, and then dribble past his opponent. But now in yesterday's game, they were much more direct in terms of their passes. They were much more direct in terms of their transition, where they wanted to exploit the space as quick as possible. There
Mhm.
was a bit of freedom for the players like Phil Foden, uh, Tijani Reinders, Patrick Dogu, and Erling Haaland to exploit the space. But in that freedom, also there was the opportunity to take risks, which usually is not the case in a Pep Guardiola style of play, which you don't take risks. You play the safe pass, the 5-10 yard passes till you get the overload. That wasn't there. And with that risk comes more chances. The likes of Foden, the likes of Erling Haaland, the likes of Patrick Dogu, Sherky, who's injured, when he comes into this style of play, would be much better suited to playing, because these players require that freedom to express
Yeah.
themselves. These players require the freedom to make that mistake and then kind of recover and own up for it. Haaland requires that service. You know, every ball needs to go down the line. Every ball needs to go into him. Every ball needs to go behind the opposition defense for him to chase. You know, that's when he looks his most dangerous and his best. Not when he's surrounded by the two centre backs and a number 6, which is every time intercepting the ball into him. So this style of play, and obviously the flip side is when you play this style, like Richard mentioned, you make a lot of mistakes. And in those mistakes, you have a transition where you concede. The rest defense as well was much, much better. You rarely saw the back four disorganized, as opposed to a Guardiola system where you would have your right and left back either on the wing or inverted. The back four, which was Kusunov and Nico Riley, were right next to Guardiola and right next to uh, uh, Diaz
Ake came
with
and Ake
Rodri
again.
and Ake, and that was another surprise. So this back four was there, just making it very compact in the middle, forcing Manchester United wide. Okay, and then when it came down to the last 5 minutes, you take off Haaland, you bring on Ake to make it a 5-4-1. Ake clearly says when he comes onto the game 5-4-1.
Yeah.
When have you last seen that in a Pep Guardiola side? In the last 5 minutes, where you're 3-0 up, he goes for the fourth or fifth goal. Here you're looking at keeping a clean sheet. When was the last time you saw a goalkeeper play for City? That is not, you'll never see a goalkeeper play for City as good as Edison. But someone who was happy to kick the ball up and, bypass the midfield and the attacking players of the opposition. So this is where I felt they've tweaked. And I think this is the input coming in from Pep Lijnders, who was at Liverpool and is known for his intensity, which you see in the intensity, not just in the style of play, but also in the counter pressing that they did. And then Kolo Toure coming in with his expertise with respect to organizing the back four as it's supposed to be. Now, blending that with Pep's principle and Pep's style of play is going to be the key factor. Can they do that consistently over the seasons or over the season against better opposition? And next they play Arsenal. Can they play the same way against Arsenal in the next game?
Ooh.
If it's going to be like that, it's going to be a good watch. Because I for one would be watching each and every game of City from now on if they're going to play like this.
So, but I feel like this in-game tweak will be used like a cheat code. It's like that. आप गाड़ी चला रहे हो, उसने आपको टर्बो दिया हुआ है, आप ओवरटेक कर रहे हो ट्रक को, टर्बो मारा, जुप से आप निकल गए. It's like that sort of a scene where for a 20-minute period you can suddenly change the entire system, and it's very direct, and it's sort of feeding into the strength of your attackers, and it gives a completely different perspective. And then you can suddenly slow the game down also if you want to slow the game down and go back to your original formula or your preferred way of playing football. And if they can blend the two seamlessly over a 90-minute period, over a season, अरे सर फिर तो मजा आएगा, फिर गेम ऑन हो जाएगा. बिकॉज सडनली अगर आपने रिचर्ड, आपने 2-0 से बढ़त ले ली, लेट्स अज्यूम आर्सेनल से, और आपने कहा जी बैठ जाओ, आ जाओ सबके सब आओ, आर्सेनल इज अ टाइटल कंटेंडर, वो तो पीछे बैठेगा नहीं, वो आएगा चढ़ने आपके ऊपर, आ जाओ. और फिर हमने लगा दिया जी आयरलैंड का एरोप्लेन, डोकू का एरोप्लेन आपके ऊपर, और करो फिर जो करना है. इट्स लाइक इट्स दैट वे. यू हैव टू गिव क्रेडिट टू पेप, एंड वी डोंट नो, आई मीन इट माइट बी द कोच Linders, right?
Pep Lijnders.
Pep Linders and Kolo Toure, but the fact is that you're surrendering to the present. कभी कभी कोच घमंडी भी होता है ना, तो आसपास अगर कुछ चल नहीं रहा.
Whatever Floyd has described, I mean that the recruitment in the staff is a massive, let's say, the reason for the change that we've seen now. Because if at all the book he mentioned intensity, you look at the minute detail with which Liverpool's campaign was managed. They replicated the length of the grass in the next opponent's ground to play these balls through. The temperature, the wetness of the ground, all of this. It was to this level that him and where Linders was in Liverpool, it was to this level that these guys were planning out their pre-season and in-season preparation. And these tweaks that we talk about, it's not easy to bring about. Ki bol diya aur ho jayega. The 3-4 Ravi recovery hoga, then there might be a European game in the midweek, and then just one training session before the next opponent. Then you need to gather all the information that you have, and to make it work within, let's say, an effective 30-40 minute training session, that this is what you want the players to see, recognize, and take on board. A lot of times हम लोग बोल सकते हैं, like I think frustration for coaches across the world is that these guys just don't get it. मैं कितने बार बोल रहा हूँ, they just don't get it. But guys like him, I mean, Pep Linders, these are guys, I mean, there's a quote in coaching also that players won't get it until they see it happening. Unless you take all of their qualities on board, you tweak the tactical play to their capabilities. That is, this ball will come, you make this run, and this is if then when jo sequence rehta hai, guys who can manufacture those situation and moments with success. on the training pitch. Linders is one of these guys who've been doing it for last 10-12 years. मतलब ऐसा नहीं है कि वो अभी आ गया. You look at the previous assistants that Pep had. I mean, the guy who had gone to on a sabbatical to learn from in Mexico, उसको लेके आ गया. So that's when he saw this very take care of the ball. The ball, yeah. I mean, this pure love for the ball, possession, rakna. Like we can spend all day in disorganizing the opponent. Play slowly, play through. Every pass has a purpose. Yes, sir. And to now, what Floyd has described, he's bringing in people who know how to execute that. So ये नहीं है कि वो घमंडी है. He's made these changes in the staff also with a clear idea that this is something that will work, because the recruitment has shown this. If you have crazy athleticism, you have players who can carry the ball, who can take advantage of spaces in. And if there is someone who's the best in the world at it and has done it under a Klopp style of play, like even the counter pressing that Floyd had mentioned, just watch the pressing phases. भाई मैं तो अभी अर्जेंटाइन स्क्रीन पे देख रहा था ये मैच, उसमें थोड़ा और exciting था. But you just look at the amount of time they create the boxes wherever the ball goes, and even the switches that we spoke about from Bruno, they were being negated because the athleticism is so high. By the time the ball goes in for a switch, क्या हुआ? They all reorganize around the ball and curb those crosses. I mean, none of the crosses were a genuine threat, barring one or two from all the switches that took place. All of it going across. The athleticism, the players understanding, the selfless defending that you got to see across the board. You never saw anybody too frustrated about coming right back. You saw Doku in the final third, Foden आया, Haaland दिख रहा था उधर. So these are all, let's say, the characteristics or mentality that has come in from a strong coaching staff change, and highly effective. I mean, even if this guy is given the license to implement any of these ideas for 20-minute phases, 15-minute phases in a game, something like what you had said, 5-4-1, somebody saying that there is equal, and this is something that players see, कि अगर coaching staff में थोड़ा discrepancy है, that they're not on the same page, that's when doubt seeps in. But over here you get to see that everybody has a say in it, and they're working towards a plan. If they know they have a 3-goal lead, maybe now there's a thing of there's absolutely no need to go for the 4th goal. Why?
Yeah, yeah.
So all of these
the other thing
recruitment.
is, they after the 3 games in the start of the season and the previous season, they have nothing to lose. So it takes a lot for, if they would have tried this and it wouldn't have worked, okay, we go back to what Pep wants. But what Pep was doing as well up to this point wasn't working. So,
Exactly.
they had some.
खाने के बाद
So
हुआ है
it
ना जो
takes,
भी हुआ है.
yeah, so it takes a lot of guts for Pep to say, okay, I want to, what do you have on, what do you want me to do? And they've responded and they've got a good result out of it. And mind you, the players that they've recruited this in the last transfer window and this, to be honest, are more suited to this style of play than Pep's positional play. It's not the Pep type of players that the Bernardo Silvas, the David Silvas, and all those players are not coming in. The players that are coming in are runners, are players that who want to play on the front foot in transition, who want to exploit space, who want to run with the ball, who want to run without the ball. And that worked a lot. The only player who was suffering, and I was laughing at it during the game, was Bernardo Silva. He was being literally bullied by Patrick Dorgu every time he tried to dribble past him. That was the only duel in the game where they lost. And he's the only player, I think, in that group that has survived, and Rodri, obviously, which is the Pep kind of type of player in that team. Every other player in that team requires freedom, requires the opportunity to take risks. And that is and they have reacted so well. Like Richard says, the players took to it with a lot of positivity, and they played it, and they said, okay, let's try this, and if it works, great. And it worked out for them really well, be it against a Manchester United team that wasn't the best in the league. So that's why I said, can they do this in the next game against Arsenal? If they're going to do that, it's going to be a fantastic game and a fantastic season to watch every Manchester United.
Just to this point, by the fact that Guardiola is willing to change, अगर आप बोले अकड़ू coach चाहिए, and he's identified that there are certain fine tweaks that we need to make. The ability to change even,
अकड़ू तो है ना सर, वो मतलब काफी धक्का खाने के बाद
वही बोल रहा हूँ. तो
हाँ,
पहले हाफ जो ये शो डेडिकेट हुआ था, अगर उधर भी धक्का खाने के बाद you develop the willingness to change and adapt rather than systems and things like that, मतलब कहीं ना कहीं तो that big change has to come in. Maybe it's a Manu problem for all you know.
I think it is. I think
Flexibility का भी बहुत देखा है उससे पहले.
नहीं सर, I think it's a systemic issue कि मतलब ग्वार्डियोला के अगर आप देखो ना, वहां पे उसको फ्री रेन है. So everything in a sense, and I'm just guessing from outside, is it's in tune with what Guardiola wants. Everything is in tune.
That's his project.
Yeah, but sir, वही मैं कह रहा हूँ ना, उसका आप first interview जो देखो, that if you knew what was happening behind closed doors, you wouldn't have asked me this question. There in itself tells you that there's a disconnect. और
Yeah.
जब वो डिस्कनेक्ट आपके दिमाग में रहता है ना, तो फिर ईगो की बात आ जाती है। अबे तो ईगो है, मैं सही हूँ तू गलत है, तू जो भी बोल रहे मैं सही हूँ, वो वाला सीन है मेरे तो हिसाब से।
पर हाँ, कुछ कमेंट नहीं है इसको लेके।
नहीं, because it feels like that, bhai. Because when you look at that Guardiola setup, it's everything. Even when Lenders has been brought in, he's been brought in with Guardiola's. It's not like someone has come over him and said you have to get Lenders in. Lenders has been brought in after call has gone from Guardiola to Lenders. Colo Toure is brought in because a call has gone from Guardiola to Colo Toure. So जो भी उस क्लब में आ रहा है और जो भी चेंज उस क्लब में आ रहा है, वो उस बंदे के दिमाग से आ रहा है. एंड देन ही इज ऑर्केस्ट्रेटिंग इट. और अगर उसके दिमाग से आया है, वो कह रहा है ठीक है, आई टेक अ स्टेप बैक, यू कम इन फॉर दिस जॉब, आप मुझे बताओ, आई लिसन टू यू. और आप जो आपको लगता है, इवन इफ यू थिंक दैट इट इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम द वे आई अप्रोच द गेम, सही चल रहा है उस हिसाब से. मैन यूनाइटेड में एकदम डिफरेंट लग रहा है कि मुझे लग रहा है ही इज कटिंग अ लोन फिगर देयर. समटाइम्स आई फील लाइक ही इज कटिंग अ लोन फिगर एंड ही इज इन द कॉर्नर. कि उसको लग रहा है कि सारी जो आंखें हैं उसको जज कर रही हैं, बिकॉज रिजल्ट्स आर नॉट गोइंग फॉर हिम. और पूरी आंखें जब आपको जज करती है ना सर, तब आपका घमंड ही बाहर आता है. देन आप आप मुक्का बाहर निकाल लेते हो कि जो भी आएगा कोने में मैं उसको मुक्का ही मारूंगा, बिकॉज उसके अलावा आप क्या करोगे वहां पे. और मेरे हिसाब से वही है रूबन एमरम का. आई डोंट थिंक ही इज गोइंग टू लास्ट फॉर टू लॉन्ग, विद ऑल ड्यू रिस्पेक्ट, बिकॉज द ओनली
Yeah,
थिंग
but
दैट
he
कैन
can
सेव
also
हिम इज अ रन.
yeah, he can also change that by the way he plays, by the way he sets up. Yes, it is against him, and it has been that for every Manchester United manager that has come in. Every Manchester United if you win a, what were we doing after the Burnley game? Everyone were excited after the Burnley game. They got the win, a positive note after the result against Grimsby. Okay, things are turning around. They're scoring goals, and Mbeumo scoring goals. So everything was looking positive. I don't think this one result changes that. Yes, it was against City, but if he can get that player selection right, if he can just go, just have a go. What is Manchester United were known for? What? For taking risks, for having a go at oppositions, especially as the game went on. Why can't he do that from the start and then bring on even more attacking players at the end? And if he goes out in that way, I don't think anybody will have complaints. But if he's going to hold the team back with his team selections and then not get the win after making changes after 60, 70 minutes, and then you're creating that false notion that okay, we tried and we created chances, it's never going to happen for him. It's never going to work for him. He has to take a risk at the moment of time, like how Pep has taken. I think I was surprised. I was very, very surprised having a look at how Manchester City played. And if Ruben Amorim can take a leaf out of Pep's book and just tweak it a little bit, system is not going to change, but tweak the personnel a little bit, could make a big difference to the way they approach games right from the first whistle, not at the 60th minute.
Brilliant, guys. I think हम लोग ना we're going to meet next week, and the discussion next week will be this only कि रूबन एमरम तब तक अपनी कुर्सी पे बैठा होगा कि नहीं बैठा होगा. वो तो मैं मजाक कर रहा हूँ, बैठा ही होगा भाई. लेकिन ये हफ्तों की बात है, because things change like this in world football. Floyd, Richard, thank you so much for joining us on the show. We of course will meet next week now. And a reminder for all of you, this is Footpod, where of course you have two of the finest minds in Indian coaching joining me, Arjun. एंड एज वी टॉकिंग अबाउट वर्ल्ड फुटबॉल, चाहे वो यूरोपियन फुटबॉल हो, चाहे वो आपका साउथ अमेरिकन फुटबॉल हो, whatever it might be, whatever catches, of course, curiosity, we'll of course talk about it on a weekly episode of Football. Do follow us on YouTube, do follow our Instagram page, and you'll get to know more about whatever we're doing. And hopefully, we continue to grow our family week in, week out. Floyd, Richard, thank you so much for joining us, guys. Much love to everyone. Goodbye.
Goodbye.